Sri Gurupyo Namaha children. Welcome to this online session. In this class, we are going to learn a lesson from history, the establishment of company power, the remaining part of the lesson. So in the last session, we have read about the policies followed by the British to colonize India and to show their supremacy over the land of India. They followed three methods. They were warfare methods, subsidiary alliances, and the doctrine of lapse policy. So under warfare methods, we have learned about Battle of Plassey and Battle of Buxar in the last session. Today we are going to learn about the Anglo-Mysore Wars. So Hyder Ali and his son Tipu Sultan were very powerful rulers of Mysore. They opposed the British. Mysore controlled a large part of the spice trade. Tipu Sultan did not want the British to trade in this region. So the English East India Company faced the strongest resistance from the rulers of Mysore, Hyder Ali, followed by his son Tipu Sultan. To gain control over the kingdom of Mysore, the British fought 4 battles between 1766 and 1799. One of the other reasons was Tipu was very close to the French, which was not liked by the British. So they had wars between them. In that war, Hyder Ali died in 1782 after fighting 2 wars. His son Tipu Sultan continued the fight but was defeated by the British at Srirangapatnam in the 4th Anglo-Mysore War in 1799. Tipu died while defending his capital Srirangapatnam. After that, the British were able to gain control over the state of Mysore. The next war which took place between Marathas and British was called Anglo-Maratha Wars. The Marathas had become weak after their defeat in the Third Battle of Panipat in 1761. So, after the Third Battle of Panipat, the power of Marathas had declined greatly. And also, the British started to interfere in the internal matters of Marathas which were not liked by them. So, this resulted in the Anglo-Maratha Wars. So, there were 3 Anglo-Maratha Wars which took place between 1775 and 1880. The disunity among the Maratha chiefs enabled the British to inflict a crushing defeat on the Marathas. So at the end of these 3 wars, the large part of Maratha kingdom were annexed by the British. The next war was Anglo-Sikh Wars. The Sikhs, under the leadership of Ranjit Singh, had established a powerful empire in the Punjab region in the 18th century. Actually, Maharaja Ranjit Singh maintained a cordial relationship with the British. As long as Maharaja Ranjit Singh was alive, the British did not interfere in the internal affairs of the kingdom. But after his death, the Khalsa or the Sikh army took over the power. The Khalsa did not trust the British. So, the British began to increasingly interfere in the affairs of the Sikhs. So, it resulted in Anglo-Sikh wars which were fought between 1845 and 1849. The Sikh army was defeated by the British and they annexed Punjab in 1849. And the next method used by the British to gain control over India was subsidiary alliances. Actually, the subsidiary alliances was a very clever move by the British to take advantage of the rivalries among the Indian rulers. So, as corruption within the English East India Company increased, the British government decided to establish more direct control over India. So, in 1773, Warren Hastings, representative of British government, became the first Governor General of India. New strategic methods were devised to bring different parts of India under their control. So they followed many strategic methods to bring many parts of India under their control. Richard Wellesley, Governor General of India, adopted the policy of subsidiary alliances. So according to this policy, British asked the rulers of India to accept them as the supreme power for them, and they asked to sign a subsidiary treaty with them. According to that, the British promised to protect the rulers from the internal rebellions as well as from the attacks by their rivals. So, Indian rulers who accepted the system had to maintain British troops in their states. So, rulers whoever accepted the subsidiary alliance, they had to maintain the British army in their kingdom. They should not maintain their own army. Instead, they have to maintain the British army. He would keep British army and pay for its maintenance. That is, the kings have to maintain the British army and they have to maintain the army also. They have to pay for their expenses of maintaining the army. So, the Indian rulers could not fight any war with other rulers or they cannot sign any treaties between others. They could not maintain diplomatic relations with other Indian states also. And they could not, without the consent of the British, they could not sign any treaties with the foreign powers also. So, if they accepted, whoever accepted the subsidiary alliances, they have to follow all these rules. The subsidiary alliance actually it was very advantageous to the British because the British could maintain a large army at the cost of Indian rulers. And also a British officer called a resident was stationed at the court of the ruler. This resident could interfere in the internal affairs of the Indian rulers also. They were given that power to interfere in the internal affairs of the Indian kings. Some of the states that joined the alliance were Awadh, Hyderabad, Maratha states, most of the Rajput states, Cochin, Travancore and Mysore. So by this alliance, British could maintain a large army at the expense of the local rulers. And the Indian ruler who accepted the subsidiary alliance became totally dependent on the British. They lost their independence. So maintaining the British troops actually it drained the king's resources. That is, it drained the huge. There was a huge drain on the state's resources also, and the rulers were forced to increase the taxes on the people. So it was the rulers, the Indian rulers, felt very bad under the condition of subsidiary alliances. That is, they could not help the people. They have to collect more taxes from the people. This dissatisfied the people also. And the next policy is Doctrine of Lapse. One of the most controversial policies adopted by the British to expand their empire in India, it was devised by the Governor General Dalhousie. With the Doctrine of Lapse, adopted heirs were no longer recognized by the British as successful, rightful successors. That is, when the ruler of a kingdom under the British protection, suppose if he died without a natural heir, his territory would not pass to an adopted heir. But the territory, that is, it would lapse. For example, it would become the part of the British Dominion. So, when the ruler of a subsidiary state died without a natural heir, the British immediately annexed the territory along with their states. So, like this, the territories which were annexed with the British were Satara, Nagpur, and Jhansi. Then, when you move on to the administration under the East India Company, they followed some principles. That is, they followed some agencies to administer India. Agencies responsible for administration under the East India Company were the first one is civil service. It was founded by Lord Cornwallis. The Indian civil servants were responsible for law and order and also revenue administration in the districts of India. At first, all the members of the Indian civil service were British. Later, the Charter Act of 1853 allowed Indians also to join the service through an open competition. But the important posts, the higher posts were given to the British people only. The next agency which was created by British was Army. It consisted of a large number of Indian soldiers, or they were called Sipais. The commanding officers were only British. Most of the commanding officers were British people only. The Sipais lived in the cantonments. They were given a regular salary by the British. Those Sipais remained loyal to the empire. The next agency which was created by British was the police. The police department was created to enforce law and order and to prevent crime. Each district was divided into police jurisdictions called stations or thanas. The police played a vital role in forcing the Indians into obeying the British. The important role played by the police during the British period was forcing the Indians to obey the British people. Then the next agency created by British was judicial administration, that is the system of courts. A new judicial system known as Adalat was established, but actually before the coming of the British, the Indians were following the laws based on the local customs and the traditions. But after the coming of the British, they started a new judicial system known as Adalat. Actually, Hindu Pandits and Muslim quasis helped the presiding British judge to interpret the laws. The British introduced rule of law and equality before law. That is, it meant everybody is equal to the law. Everyone is equal to the law or one law for all. In 1865, three high courts were created in Calcutta, Madras and Bombay. At the local levels, a number of district courts, registrar courts, subordinate courts were established by the British. So, the British had come to India as traders. Soon, they became the conquerors. Then, by the middle of the 19th century, the British were the supreme power in India. Large part of the country was under their direct rule. Even though the few kingdoms that remained independent, they were indirectly ruled by the British. So, India was turned into a British colony. Thank you, children. We have completed the lesson. We will meet in the next class.